How many people?
Sorry.
I was going to ask how many people, more or less, are there in the PMI Galicia chapter?
Well, I don't know the number of members nowadays, but we are more or less up, around 40 volunteers. More, I think so. But well, I am in the part of the volunteers who create contents for the web, for the Instagram and something like that. But there is several groups in order to do different things. All of us has the opportunity to moderate some webinars to help to 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 join to these webinars and help the chapter to organize this type of things. Okay. Yes,
That is good.
the PMI Galician chapter is increasing. Is increasing. I think is a good thing. People in charge of the chapter is doing a very good job, I think.
I think so. It was all very organized for me to be here. So I really appreciate that and the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Okay. Well, if well, we will wait 5 minutes. We are six people in the webinar, and well, we will start in order uh, to to be complete with the timetable. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sana, and I want to welcome you on this new event organized by PMI Galician chapter. Today we will enjoy with Master Agility Beyond Traditional Mindset, where we will have the possibility to discover how to adapt an agile mindset in more traditional environments, and that the way to think more agile is not only a methodology, but a need to go through these new times when everything goes faster. We are very lucky to have Ricardo Peters to give us this webinar. Let me do a brief introduction of Ricardo. Ricardo is a certified agile coach and he has several project certification. He has a huge experience in project management, teaching, coaching as a facilitator too, and last year is working as an enterprise agile coach. He's a specialist in leadership and management, and he has written several articles to help people to empower them using their own talents. Welcome, Ricardo. Thank you for joining. The floor is yours. A palabra é vossa. Go on.
Thank you, Ana Maria. I'd like to start thanking you all for the opportunity to be here and do this talk. It's it's topic that is very dear to me because I I came from a very traditional mindset. I was specialized uh, in what I call today classic project management. I have the PMP, the PMI ACP, the PMI PBA certifications, and now I'm glad I'm learning the discipline agile certifications such as the DASSM Senior Scrum Master and the DA Coach, to mention a few of PMI. And a long time ago, I was introduced to agility, and it was very hard for me to make peace with what I was listening because some of it was very different from what was used to as a manager. That's the main reason why I'm doing this talk today, to make it easier, because I had to study and look for answers myself. Agility back then was not how it is today, that today we have plenty of sources from where we can figure things out. But when I started, there was not a lot of books written about it. So hopefully I can help some of you in this transition. I hope the subject is not too basic, but if you do not know nothing about agility, you have come to the right place. So thank you again for the opportunity to be here. I'll leave this in the as so you can take a look later. But today we are going to talk about essentially what is an agile mindset, and I'm going to talk about it, showing sense make frameworks like the Stacy model and Canevin framework. We're going to talk about VUCA. We're going to talk about Bunny and what those acronyms mean. And by the end of this session, my expectation is that you are able to understand when apply agility to the right context. And yes, I'm going to start saying that I don't believe that you can use agility for everything. You're not going to hear this here. But I also think that, at least in my industry, I work with IT and software development, and with education as well. So I have experiences outside IT with teams using agility, and they simply love it. My guess is that it is because um, it's more or less the way life works. So the responses that we are asked to do are better than the linearity and the planning that are asked of us in traditional mindset. So I ask you to stop me at any time. Let's not wait until the end of the presentation. Just raise your hand and bring a question. And let's try to make this easy for you. So I'm going to start talking about VUCA. This is an acronym that you might have heard at some point. And it translates to volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. When we talk about volatility, we're talking about change, but not simple changes. We're talking about changes that are unpredictable. Pay attention to this word, unpredictable, and very rapid. When we're talking about uncertainty, we are talking about lack of predictability and an inability to foresee future events. When you talk about complexity, we are talking about interconnected parts and variables making decision-making very, very, very difficult. And when we are talking about ambiguity, we are talking about lack of clarity about the meaning of an event or situation. So this is an acronym used by the US military to describe what the scenario looked like after the Cold War. So by the names that we see on the screen, it's a very difficult environment. And here is what we start our agile transformation. And if you are doing this, we're talking about embracing change, fostering collaboration, and trying to improve continuously. Nothing is that good that cannot be improved at least a little bit. So we embed continuous improvement in all we do, so we can always try to do it better. A more recent acronym by Jamás Casio, which is a futurist and also an author, is the BUNNY acronym. BUNNY translates to brittle, which is systems that seem robust but can break down unexpectedly. Anxious means high levels of stress and anxiety due to constant change. Non-linear, we're talking about events and actions that do not follow a predictable path. And incomprehensible, we're talking about situations that are very difficult to understand or make sense of. One thing that is interesting of bringing Benny into the soup of letters that I'm bringing here is that Benny incorporates, like extends and deepens the VUCA framework, incorporating emotional and psychological dimensions. Now you have a more nuanced understanding of modern challenges. So what I have just described here uh, probably looks a little bit like the environment where you work on. At least part of the job that we do in our daily lives has these types of characteristics in terms of environment, in terms of challenges that we face. Sometimes there is no easy solution for the challenges that we face. So that type of work that we need to do would enter the scope of these both frameworks. And when we are talking about uh, doing an agile transformation in terms of a mindset, it's not just a shift in the way we are doing things, the processes that we are using. We're talking about a fundamental evolution in the way that we think. Because now we are not going to have, at least in agile teams, the concept of a supervisor, someone who supervises the work to check if things are going accordingly. If you are a project manager working with agile teams, you probably are not their manager. They will manage the work that is being done. They are empowered to do the work. They are the people who are micromanaging the details of the work being done. As a project manager in agile teams, in my opinion, you would act more like kind of a glue that connects the team with the organization and the clients of the project, for instance. I always say to people, it's great having a classic project management mindset. And if you are open-minded, you start working with an agile team, you are now finally have the time to do all the planning and the plans that you always wanted to do and never had time, because you are not supposed to micromanage your team. You are supposed, as Jürgen Appelus says in Management 3.0, he has this phrase which is very dear to me, which is the role of the leader is align restrictions. Every organization are going to have restrictions in time, restrictions in terms of resources, and it's the role of the new manager to align those restrictions, which is, in other words, say to the team, you can do in each way you think is good to do, as long as dot dot dot. So after this dot dot dot, you're not going to put 9,900 or 100 rules for the team to follow, but you're going to deal with it. As you do with children, right? You give them a few rules, 3 or 4, because otherwise they will forget. And then you are very strict to those rules. This is important because you are empowering the team to learn and to find the best way, to discover the best way to do the work as you support the team. So this new type of project manager working with our teams is like a gardener, right? That cultivates a garden and help not plants but people grow in their respective roles. So this empowerment is very important because empowered teams will be able to adapt to those conditions that I described in BANI and VUCA, will be able to drive innovation throughout the organization, and they will thrive in the face of uncertainty. And why is that? They will thrive because they know how to adapt to the new situation, and they do not have to follow 100 and so on processes before making a change in the project. As most of you already probably know, when you're working in an agile project, you plan for the next 2 weeks I think the longer you plan in an agile project is for a quarter, for 3 months, right? 6 months is too much. I have another talk that I talk about how to plan for 1 year in an agile project, but the end of it, more or less, is like you can do the forecasting, you can make the plan, but certainly the plan will change and will change a lot. But it's like a vision that you have ahead of you and lets you able to make better decisions. So the classic project manager in me refuses to die because I know the importance of looking up ahead and try to foresee uh, alternate futures and then make better decisions because of that. But teams working with agility, they plan over facts, and the facts are right there. So it's fairly easy to plan 2 weeks of work. It's not that easy to plan 6 months ahead, right? Some people say that when we are working with agile projects, you have a lot of rework to do because you didn't plan accordingly. Pay attention to this. This is a fallacy that by the end of this presentation, I hope you are able to answer why this is a fallacy, right? So let's take a look on the studies of Mr. Ralph Douglas Stacey. He's from the University of Hertfordshire. This is an old slide. I don't know if this changed a bit. When I was preparing to this presentation, I saw that the Cynefin framework changed again a little bit, so I was able to update it. But Stacey says this thing here. If in your project, and if it is a technology project, for instance, if people are very close to agreement in terms of what needs to be done, in other words, the requirements, and they are very certain about the technology that they are going to use, we would say that we are in a simple environment. And the characteristic of simple is that most of the things that we are going to do are known. In this instance, it makes a lot of sense to have the mindset of accuracy, save resources, get it right the first time, almost 100%, because you probably have data, you probably have analytics, you have done this before many, many times. So it's not that difficult to implement stuff. So this is the simple domain, right? As we move up, in the complicated domain, more is known than unknown. So it's still fairly easy to do, but now there's a degree of uncertainty that we have to deal with. Moving up, we have the complex domain, where more is unknown than known. So if you don't know a lot of what you need to do, if you have never done it before, things get, as the word says, very complex, right? And even worse is when we go to the chaotic domain, where the thing is so out of control, very little is known, and you are usually in a situation that you need to stabilize first, then make decisions. So you are always reacting, responding to daily demands. It is very difficult to come out with a strategy, and is quite the opposite of the domain that is called simple, right? So as we are not in agreement on requirements and uncertain about the technology, things get harder. I'm not sure, I haven't seen this, but I always put this arrow in the middle with the people. This is my take on this one, because I think the more people that you add to the mix, the more chaotic it gets, right? So this is a form that we have to try to make sense to what's happening and where we are right now. I ask you this, think about it for a little bit, and if you have, think about what you do in your daily work. Where are you now in these four domains? Are you more on the simple side? Are you more on the complicated side? or other complex. Most people say, "Oh, I don't know. It varies. Sometimes I'm dealing with something that is very complex. Sometimes simple, and that is okay. It makes sense." But take a look at your work as a whole, where you spend the most of your time. I'll tell you this: if you spend most of your time on the simple domain, agility probably is not going to be something that you think is going to work on your domain. Those are domains where processes are very strong. Things are written everywhere. You have responses for almost every type of problem. So I still defend that you need an agile mindset on simple domains as well. But you can solve a lot of things with the analytics and information that you have collected throughout the years, right? If you are on chaotic or complex domains, agility gets more interesting for you. Okay, there is a similar pattern, and you also see the four main domains. And as Dave Snowden called them, it's a sense making framework. So we start things on the clear domain over here. Can you guys see my mouse? I think so, right? On the clear domain. The clear domain is compared to the simple one. Over here, thank you, Agustina. Yes, okay, I see it. The clear domain is where you have best practice. When you talk, we are talking about the PMBOK, for instance. The PMBOK is a collection of best practices in project management. So we kind of know what works and what doesn't work when you're trying to manage projects. So there are all those areas of knowledges and processes that you can tailor to the needs of your projects. That's why they call best practice. This is a term that sometimes we might challenge it because to say that something is a best practice, you would have to do a global research, a global survey to figure out which are the best practices. But that's kind of what PMI does and other organizations as well on trying to make sense of the challenges that we have. So bear with me here. If you are in a clear environment or a simple environment domain, uh, Dave Snowden's suggestion for you is sense what's going on, look for the category of the problem that you are facing, and you already had a response ready. The company knows how to fix this. You know, when you call your internet provider and say, "Hey, my internet is down. Can you help me?" And the person, I'm going to describe what happens here in Brazil. Probably the same thing over there in Spain, but here in Brazil, the person will start asking you, "Are you in front of the router?" "Yes, I am." Is there any light blinking on the router? This is a question just to know if the router is plugged into the electricity, right? And if you say yes, there are lights blinking, you say, okay, they are going to stop blinking right now, and then they're going to start blinking. When they stop blinking, you tell me, and let's see if your internet goes back. What this person is doing with you is because they have data where 99% of the time is a problem uh, of disconnection or outdated software in the router. So they don't even ask, they reset the router and install the new software for them. And that usually solves most of the problems. And that's why my example for domains that are clear. There are a lot of predictability. You can figure out capacity very easy of the system. And you can even write operational procedures for people to follow, and that will work. It's a meat grinder, right? You put meat on one side, you turn the lever, and then meat gets out on the other side. Everything is the same always, right? On the complicated domain, uh, the relationship between cause and effect is not that evident. So you need expertise. You need someone, an analyst or someone with expertise to figure out what's happening. In my previous example, if the person on the phone cannot solve your internet problem, he or she will say, okay, I'm sending someone to your house to verify the problem. He will be there tomorrow, for instance. And then the technician comes, look into your devices, makes a few tests, and now he's going to use good practice. There's no one single way that is most efficient to solve the problem. The analyst, the expert, the specialist, he or she knows a lot of ways to solve the problem. So if you try to force a way to solve the problem, you probably only get people irritated. So he or she will figure out what's best for that situation, and they will probably use a bunch of good practice. So you sense what's going on, you do the analysis, and then you choose how to respond among a few options that you have. So on the right side of the screen, you have what we call ordered systems. Ordered systems are systems where you can see fairly easily the relationship to cause and effect. If you have a problem, you can identify the cause and then you can solve it, right? On the left side of the screen, you have what we call unordered systems. Unordered systems are systems that are not that easy to figure out the cause and effect relationships. For instance, in the complex domain, you're going to do, before it was emergent practice, now it's acceptive practice. But the best way to solve the problem will emerge as you try to understand what the problem is. So the strategy is to probe, sense what's going on, and then choose one response that might not work. That might not work. And then you do the same. You probe, you sense, and you choose another response. So on this side of the screen, don't expect to get it right the first time. There is a phrase that gets stuck in my mind about this one. Unpredictable results every single time. You cannot predict. You have to make a decision between A and B, and there's no way for you to know if it's going to be the right decision or not. You just make the decision a while ahead. Someone might criticize your decision. Hey, you just have A and B. Why didn't you choose B? Because it was not evident at the time. It was not apparent at the time. Now that some time has passed, and knowing what we know now, we know that it was not the best strategy. We should have gone with B, but that information was not available. So unpredictable results every single time. When you compare the complex domain with the clear domain, you see the difference, and you see how ridiculous it is to try to get the best practice that you use on a clear domain and force them on a complex domain. They might work, they might work, maybe they will work, but you just don't know, right? And if they don't work, you have to figure out another way of doing it. And as I said, I'm not going to spend much time on the chaotic, because chaotic is out of control, right? You have to stabilize the session. So act first, then sense what happens, and then plan. I often compare this to a building in flames, right? You do not want to know where the fire started, what is the temperature, what is the pattern of distribution of the fire. Those things doesn't matter. What matters is get people out of the building as fast as possible so we can save lives. So just act. And it might be very frustrating to work on chaotic environment because there are no rules here. You are always figuring out new ways to do stuff. But there's a thing that is interesting. If you spend too much time working only on the clear domain, those of you who saw yourselves on the simple domain on the last slide, and here you see yourself on the clear domain, there is a danger here, because you might be invited to think that everything is very simple, everything is very easy, because you have never seen chaotic environments or domains, right? So what works in the clear domain will not work probably in the chaotic. And where do you think innovation happens? Innovation will happen in probably in the complex or chaotic, where people say that phrase that there is opportunity in chaos, right? So this is true. Once you figure out how to stabilize a huge society problem, you have an opportunity. So you have to make it less difficult to solve it and maybe migrate to the complex domain. And in a day's work, you might have experienced all four of them, depending of your line of work. So it's a way to make sense of what's happening here. Uh, and you have at the center the confused area, which was called previously disorder. Is when you cannot know where you are. There is this possibility. I'm not sure in each of these domains I spend most of my time, so I'm just confused. You probably will have to figure out eventually how to deal with that, but it's another way to see, hey, none of these strategies might work perhaps, so you have to be mindful of what's happening, right? Let me give you an example of a book I read, which is called Software in 30 Days. There they have the full story of the FBI Sentinel project. I'm giving this slide here, but the fast story is there was they were working to launch a new system for the FBI, and they were over $405 million, and they were using the traditional uh, engineering practices to build software, which I used to teach on the university. And now I'm not sure we just analyze it from a historic perspective, because waterfall is useful still in terms of analogies to understand the process as a whole, but agility seems to work better, at least in software development. So $405 million, and the software was not working. So the book describes that they start using one of the most famous frameworks in agility, which is the Scrum framework. And in 2 years, they were able to make it work. What did they do different? They bring uh, short cycles of development. They start listening to the users that were using the system, what they think, what they need, right? And they kept improving on what they built before. So if you are working with agility, the first version of your software is not going to be the most robust one, the most elegant one. It's going to be ugly, but it's going to be working enough for people to give you feedback and you know where you need to improve. It's a common practice in agility to work with prototypes. Use prototypes on when there's a high degree of uncertainty and you have to test your solution in a smaller scale, right? This is not from IT per se. Other industries and areas do this, but they were able to deliver much faster, sorry, than the traditional methods, which we know for sure today that they do not aggregate a lot of value in the process. And this is a phrase of mine that humans gravitate towards linearity and modularity. I love, I would love if my life was linear. What do you mean, Ricardo? Your life is linear. Year after year, you're getting older. At some point of your life, you're going to die. So you were born, now you're married. So there are phases in life. And one day your life went, this is linear. I wish it was, because from a planning perspective, it's very hard to plan your life. You might have your dreams, you might have uh, the north that you want to pursue, but life throws stuff at you, and sometimes you are ahead, sometimes you're far behind, and it's not linear. And another thing is we like modules, right? We like connecting parts of things that helps us understand things better. But sometimes modularity is not that um, beautiful. I don't know if you have seen this movie on the internet. I probably, if you look for ants, there's a short film of a documentary on YouTube that you can watch, uh, where they pour for days cement into a ant's hole, right? And then they start digging to see what it looks like underneath the ground. And they dig and they dig, and it's beautiful the way that are they just keep building down to make air flow inside the colony, and it's not modular per se, right? There are connections, but it's beautiful the way they do things. So modularity, it's kind of boring. It serves mass production, which is not uh, what you're going to use for agility. For agility, you're going to do things that were never done before and are not going to be perfect the first time. There are going to be several iterations of your product before it gets okay. So I'm at the end of my slides here. And as I told you, it's not just a shifting process, but if you are going to be have a if you're going to have an agile mindset, what should you do? You're going to prioritize your client's feedback. You're going to have your client next to you. He will see the problems that you have, but he will see how you work towards solving them. And in time, your client becomes your advocate and works with you throughout the problems, which is something that I only experienced a few times in my career. Clients are usually fairly distant, so agility brings this novelty, which makes the job easier. We are going to do this in blocked slots of time. So you build part of what you want to build now, you deliver it, you test it, you see if the client is okay with that, and based on the feedback, you build another part of the system and another, and you keep improving the whole system. It's not just adding modules to what you have built before, but sometimes you're going to refactor the whole thing because now you know a better way to do it, and it's going to be worth to do it right now. So it's not perfect the first time. And you're going to invest in cross-functional teams with several expertises, where people learn with each other. There's not one specialist sending the work to another specialist and then to another specialist. No, we work together, and I might learn a little bit of what you do, and you might learn a little bit of what I do. And if someday you get sick and you're not there, I can try to do your work because I know a little bit about it. That way, everybody wins, and we are going to be a more performatic team in terms of our deliveries. So, agile teams are those people that do not exactly keep following the rules, because if you apply agility to the right domain, which is the complex domain, if you apply it to the right domain, there are no rules, unpredictable results every single time. So you have to kind of figure out your way as you are building what you're supposed to build. So when we look at the Agile Manifesto, you have there 4 values and 12 principles, right? Those are the most important things. Those are the things that will contain the whole mindset on what we are going to do. We are value driven. We do things different from traditional mindsets. We do not try to plan everything big up front, up ahead, right? I see a distortion that there are a lot of frameworks, to mention a few: Scrum, Kanban, Crystal, DSDM, and others, right? Lean, for instance. And for each of those frameworks, you have a lot of rules that must be followed if you are working within these frameworks. And for me, this is not very important. The most important thing is if you understand when you need to work different from what traditional asks you to work. And to make that decision is why I'm here talking to you today. It's better being agile than do agile, which is follow blindly the rules without knowing why they are important or if they apply to your context, right? Hopefully, if you were able to understand the Connecting framework or the Stacy matrix, you now know that there is a part of your job of your organization that need processes, that need the accuracy and the effectiveness that you have by running processes in your organization on the simple domain. But how do you solve the complex problems that keep changing in a very turbulent market condition that we have? You cannot solve them with the same mindset, with the same mentality that you were doing the projects. You do not try to force the rules that you already have on something that is unpredictable every single time. So there's the space for agility. Okay. I thank you so much for your time here and for listening to me speak. And we now, I'm open to questions if you might have some of those for us to talk about. And over there is my LinkedIn. Please add me. I'll be glad to exchange information with you and maybe practice a little bit of my Spanish. Thank you so much. Back to you, Anna.
Thank you, Ricardo. Very interesting webinar. You can, if you want to make any questions, you can switch on the microphone or write it in the chat, and I can read it if you want. And while we wait for any question, I'm going to write the PDU code that you can use in order to the PMI credits. And I encourage you guys in order to ask Ricardo and use his experience in our benefit. Let me start if let me start with a question. Well, when I see the graphic about simple, complex, I think I think in our or in my experience, I think I move into the complex to the chaotic always. Then I think is this is the best environment to apply agile mindset is in your opinion.
It is. It is. Unpredictable results every single time. So there's no single way of solving the problems that you face. And when you do find a solution, it will kind of emerge of the work you are doing. As you do the work, as you try to solve the problem, the solutions become available. Uh, and then if you are using, for instance, Scrum, you are doing the traditional PDCA, right? Plan, do, check, and act. So you plan for 2 weeks in your role. What you know, what type of work you know you can do now. You do the work. When this period ends, you check your work for completion, for accuracy, for compliance with your requirements, and then you make adjustments for the next cycle, right? So you apply corrective action in what you think that didn't work. So if you are working in a complex environment, sometimes you are going to come to the conclusion that hey, uh, what we were thinking 2 weeks ago to try this, it doesn't make any sense. But you now know this, you didn't know that when you start doing it. So you now have the opportunity to change your strategy and try something else completely. So it's more frequently it's more frequent to fail on complex environments and learn from those mistakes, right? Because once you got it right, you now have a winner product, or you solved a very, very difficult problem for society. So the main difficult thing I think over here is, am I in a complex environment? Yes or no? So
Yeah.
there are some ways to figure this out. Like, if you things always change. You have strategies that the company tells you to use, but they don't usually work. You have to try something else. You're probably on a complex environment. Most of what I do in software development are complex work.
Yeah. Okay. Very clear for me. Very clear for me, and I will try to include this way of thinking in our projects. In my sector, traditional waterfall is the most used way of managing, but I think agile mindsets can help to our in these environments. What will be the first things you would do if you want to include more agile uh, activities or more agile mindsets in our culture, in our waterfall culture? What is the first thing? If there is one thing you can do, what is the first or the most important thing to do?
I like your question. That is a very, very good question. I would say this. I would say this. Uh, Based on my experience, so it might not work for you, but based on what I have seen, uh, you have to let people learn. You know, they they should be able to risk without being in any danger.
Mhm.
I love when I'm teaching the Scrum framework. There is this metaphor that we use, that the Scrum Master is the shepherd dog, right? Because the shepherd dog, it cares for the animals that it protects, and the shepherd do this as well, right? So establishes boundaries, frontiers that should not be crossed, because those are going to be dangerous for them,
Mhm.
and try to bring everyone together to do the work that needs to be done. So the first thing I would say is that let people make mistakes, but create an environment where it's okay to learn from these mistakes. Ricardo, you might say, Ricardo, this doesn't make any sense. How can I let people make mistakes? That's the main message that I want to bring here. If you are applying agility to the right domain, I'll say it again, unpredictable results every single time. So of course you're going to make mistakes. You're not going to get right the first time. So the question becomes, am I applying agility to the right environment or not? I have worked with teams. I'm not allowed to say the name of the company, but it's worldwide. But I work with some of those teams in Brazil, and not IT related, and they have factories, right? So they have machines set up before things are put in place. They have processes to produce things that need to be followed accordingly to guarantee quality and so on. So a very strict and traditional environment, process related environment, right? For me, not a good place to do agility. But if you are developing a new product that you don't have right now, if you are facing something like the pandemic or other types of problem that you have never faced before, the processes that you have might not work. So now is the time to have the mindset. So let people make mistakes. And the word that I would ask people to start practicing is, how can I delegate? How can I support my team? How can I empower them to do the work, or to discover the work? This is better. how to empower them to discover the work that needs to be done and deliver something among all this complexity. So do not use agility for things like payroll or processes that you know that they have to be 100% accuracy all the time. You should look for the part of your organization that is very, very complex and assemble teams to do that. And you're going to see that this is the natural way to solve those problems. We all have seen this on research and development departments, for instance, right? You go into the company and you see all those bureaus, those desks, one beside other, the same thing. This is where the magic happens and so on. And then let's check our R&D department. And you have booths on the floor. People are playing cards. There are colors, TVs, and games, and so on. What's going on here? Are those people doing work? Of course, they are doing work. They are working on kind of deprogram the way we do today, trying to figure out the next wave of what needs to be done. So they cannot be restricted for the current rules that we have if they are going to bring innovation inside, right? So look for the innovative work and then apply agility. You're going to hear from other agilists that no, you can use it everywhere and it works everywhere. That's not my opinion. I think it works perfectly for complex work, and there always a part of your work that is very complex that you might enjoy using this mindset of frameworks. Empowerment would be my answer, my short answer. Thank you for this question. I love it.
Thank you, Ricardo. I don't know if there is any more questions. If not, well, we only give it again. Thank you, Ricardo. It was very interesting. We are very pleased to be here with you and to listen your experience. Thank you so much. Uh, and well, we stop the webinar if it's so good for you, or if you want to say anything more.
I just like to thank for this opportunity. As you all know, when you start getting involved with PMI, good things happen. This is a good thing on my week. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Hopefully, sometime ahead, I'll be joining you doing a webinar in Spanish. Let's
Okay,
see. Thank you.
perfect. Many thanks, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye bye.